supposed to keep the trucks. Yeah, a new cane. Hey. One of those doors around back. It's been a long time.
Yeah, we're so glad you're here. I don't tell you about vacation, obviously.
I saw your name over at the,
I haven't seen you since this conference.
You just got to write out 2 or 3 legal opinions, and that's it. Excuse me.
how are you this morning, Ashley?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm all right. How are things at the county attorney's office?
It's
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
I think Cam's on. I think he's in Disney World.
Yeah.
Spring break.
Yeah. That is a. I'm sure it's a busy,
Oh,
busy
yeah.
place today.
This time of year.
Ashley, where are you from?
I'm from here.
From Georgetown?
Yeah, I'm
Did
from
you go to Scott County High? Where'd you graduate?
2005.
Okay. So I taught at Scott King High School when I got to college, and I left and went to Texas. And then I came back to Scott King High in 2007. So I missed you. I was assistant principal. The head principal.
I don't know. What'd you do to him?
Electrician's corner right there. What did you do with it?
We got it covered. I don't know. What'd you do to him?
All right, Godfather Bradford. Godfather in the house.
I graduated from Scott
Everybody comes to water.
Okay. Yeah.
Good year, Joe.
You were born in 86.
Joe got 86.
Everybody says they're right. Everyone.
You young, right?
I think I went to.
Good idea. Somebody else there. We come in 6th place.
Half mile.
Wow.
Candace, how are you?
It's that time. I just got my phone
Doing well?
this week from
Good.
Wayne. Yeah.
How are you? Did he put you on the bench or did he let you fly?
I don't know that he was a whole lot about something. I would say Joe Pat goes stop. He said score.
So here's the truth.
Hey.
My first job was
I'm dying to take
full-time substitute teacher at Scott County High School. And I was assistant basketball coach. Freshman.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I've been watching
And when
videos.
they hired me, they
Yeah.
said, now, Joe Pat,
Yeah.
you're going to be the GM.
First 2 there, take her easy. Up and
I
down.
knew nothing about soccer.
Yeah.
I really went and got 2 books and taught myself some semblance of coaching soccer.
He just yelled. Go team cheerleader. He was a glorified cheerleader.
True, Ashley.
Go team.
He said, you
Yeah.
also got other teams doing
No, we had Seth. You know who else
He had
was
a
on
pretty
the team?
clean
Seth Johnson. And then
I ain't either. With 2 kids on that brand new one. Yeah. Stratus is good. Yes, sir. Well, that's gonna happen, and me and you ain't spraying chickens no more. I'm trying to order one of them ladders to go. You put it on the front and you can climb on your boat with it. Yeah, I ordered one. I still ain't got it. It's on back over.
see the outside.
He's a busy man.
Shoot, he'll be busy next week when that sun's shining.
Huh?
He'll be busy next week.
Warm next week.
That's right.
Yes, that- That's really good. Well, it was the days it was warm and windy. I mean, it was everywhere.
It wasn't Tuesday. I didn't think it was.
Chris, you watching the back row there, man? There's one there. They were out. Watch it.
I'm just telling you that.
Yeah.
Read that real quick.
Yeah.
Do you think we should share that?
We can.
Well, we can do it, and then the other question. Morning, Jeff. Do I need to get your, the courts approve that?
It's under 20.
You all approved me seeking outside counsel.
Yeah.
On county. It's about seven.
I think when we.
Did that, then I wrong?
Yeah, I believe so. That's under $20,000, right?
Yeah, well, it's actually.
Okay. So I think
Did that pass, Joe?
approved.
40,000?
Yeah, I think it did. But I need to double check.
I never heard whether it did or not.
All right, good morning, everyone. It's 9 a.m. We'll try to start promptly on this Good Friday. You are with us today at our Scott County Fiscal Court work session. We have some guests today. First of all, Cam Culbertson's out, but we have Ashley Morgan with us this morning. Ashley is Assistant County Attorney, and thanks, Ashley, for being with us. We also have some guests on our Zoom feed. Joe Winston, good morning. How are you?
Morning, I'm doing very well, thank you.
Could you introduce your guests that are with you?
Yes, with me is Ryan Underwood. Underwood is with the Rotunda Group, and he's representing us at the state here in Kentucky. And Jeff Lott is with us. Jeff Lott is also helping assist with the interface to county specifically, like yourselves.
Okay, very good. I invited a couple guests as well. Devin Golden, the Chief Administrative Officer of the City of Georgetown. And also in our courtroom this morning, I have Karen Butcher with us. Karen, good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Glad to have you. Karen, could you share with everyone your work with the PAL group here, and you actually started it here in Georgetown, and then you were also a member of the committee on the statewide committee as well. So I invited a couple guests just to be with us today. We also have Rick Hostetler that is on the Zoom with us remotely, our magistrate. Before we get started, I'd like to ask everyone, once we've done some introductions, we also have one more introduction. Candace Whitehouse is going to give us a presentation from Elizabeth's Village about their work in our community, and we appreciate what they do for our community very much. I'm excited to hear what's going on at Elizabeth's Village as well. So before we start with the presentation with Joe Winston and his team, I would like everyone to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Let us pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So Joe, I will turn this over to you, and appreciate your all's presence. And Joe made a request to for us to consider a grant application related to the opioid settlement monies. We've discussed those many times in our meetings, and Joe has met with me previously and discussed the net device that he has been working on for many years. And I'll turn it over to you, Joe, and let you explain your project with the sober study and what's going on with your project.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, magistrates. I am Joe Winston. I'm the CEO of Net Recovery. We've been researching a new treatment for opiate use disorder in Kentucky for about 12 years now, starting in 2011. What we've been testing is whether it's possible for OUD to be treated in a manner that does not require medication in the long term. And I would say that today, the gold standard for treatment of opiate use disorder is medication. It's things like Subutex and methadone. There are today a large number of people who would like to have a treatment option that does not require medication, and as of this date, the FDA has not approved any of those. The device that we're investigating in Kentucky is seeking to see if it can address that gap. So I'll also say from the beginning that we're not a big pharma company. We're not Purdue Pharma. We're a small family-run business. I am the CEO and the co-founder, but we're a small company, and our intent here is to see if there is an alternative approach for folks who would wish to be drug abstinent without medication. So we started in Kentucky back in 2011. We treated over 500 people. We treat them with a small device that puts two small electrode pads behind their ears and uses what's called electrostimulation. And in that electrostimulation, what we are seeking to prove right now in a pivotal clinical study for the FDA is that we can remove a person's cravings. And what we've observed in our open label studies is that when people have their cravings go away, they are able to choose not to take drugs in the long run. And a fairly large number of people do. So please understand, I'm not free to make any kind of claims about safety or efficacy while we're in this process with the FDA. I can only describe to you what it is that our study is seeking to establish to the FDA. And that is very specifically treating a person for about 5 days, makes their cravings go away, and the majority of those people will choose then not to take drugs in the long term. This is always delivered in the context of medication. There are some people who would choose to have medication, and at any moment in time, they can stop using the device and they can switch, and some number of people choose to do that. That study has now closed its inpatient portion. It was being run at a facility called Isaiah House. We're certainly very grateful to Isaiah House for letting us take over 4 of their facilities for a period of time. We would expect to go to the FDA sometime at the end of this year. In parallel with that, we see this opportunity to have the drug companies that cause this level of difficulty for our community, to have them pay for an innovative approach to solving that. And we would do that through these settlement funds. So we've made a proposal to the state of Kentucky, the Commonwealth, and to about a dozen counties. It's a joint proposal, and what that proposal would do is treat about 500 people with NET, and it would match them with 500 people that are also Kentucky citizens that have a very similar profile, and it would track them over a year. And the thing that it would seek to establish is not just do people die or do people overdose. And those are very important things to be tracked. But this study seeks to track something very different. It seeks to track, do these individuals become productive members of our society? Do they effectively return to the kind of lives that they would have had prior to having opiate use disorder? And when I say are they productive, very specifically, I mean, are they employed? What are their wages? Are they arrested? Are they incarcerated? Do they engage in education? Do they engage in forced development? What we're trying to establish is that if there is a population that can be abstinent over the long term, that we can have a positive social change. And so this study is called The Social Benefits of Recovery. Again, it's 500 people treated. It's 1,000 people traced over a 1-year period of time to establish whether there are social benefits to this recovery. We have asked the state for $3.7 million on their side. We are talking to a number of counties to raise $1.3 million over 3 years. I will say that we are actively engaged with now 34 counties, which gives me a certain problem because at the end of the day, a study is prospective and it can only take 500 people. We will take the first 10 or 12 counties that comprise about 500 people. So our request here of you, of the fiscal court, if you are looking for an opportunity to participate in an innovative piece of research that would address treatment of your citizens, that it would address that portion of the population today that is not served by medication. That portion today is about 80% of folks with opiate use disorder. If you're interested in participating in that, we would love to have you come alongside. What we would do in the study is appoint individuals, and principally an individual that would work with you to identify folks in your county that would wish to participate. We would get them into one of 8 facilities, 5 male, 3 female, for about 1 week of treatment. Following that week of treatment, we will help move them back into the county. If you have aftercare that is in your county, if you have aftercare that's in adjacent counties, we'll help direct them there. Ultimately, our view is that aftercare is a necessary part of this process. The best that MDT can do, which is trying to establish with the FDA, is give a person the choice to take drugs or not. This is not some kind of magic cloak. This just says, I get to choose. People often need help in managing that choice. Lives are certainly upended through opiate use disorder. So we would work with the individual, we would work with Isaiah House, the context in which they would be treated in order to establish an aftercare plan. And from our perspective, the benefit to your county is you could take folks that you know, you could have them go through the process, they could engage locally or in adjacent counties or other aftercare if you wish, and you could observe for yourselves whether this is in fact a positive change to them from a social point of view. Was there social recovery, not just avoidance of death and overdose? Okay, that was a lot. That's a big mouthful. Are there questions that I can take from the floor? This is a fairly complicated topic.
Joe, thank you for being here today. And when you all were at the Magistrates Conference in Louisville approximately a month ago, I believe about 4 of us were there and heard that presentation. And I have shared your email and your attachments related to the study and the request. I've shared that with all of our courts. So they have that base of information. So I would open it up to any member of our court or anyone that's here in our audience that would have a question for you, and we'll go from there. Chad Wallace.
Joe, 2 questions. First of all, you in your presentation said that a large percent of your sample size has recovered or has lost the craving for drugs. What specific percentage are you talking about? And the second thing is, are these people that you have run these tests on, are these people that are in Isaiah House or in some type of program like Isaiah House, or are they incarcerated?
On the first question, regrettably, I am forbidden for speaking about ratios of success or not by the FDA until the study is done. And frankly, this pivotal study will run and the blind hasn't been broken yet. So it's not that I'm withholding from you. I won't know until the blind is broken what the percentage is. There are published studies that were open label that are available that you can look at. And if you wish, I can make those available to you. But I need to be careful not to make a claim outside of clearance from the FDA. Regarding the second question, all of the people were treated in Isaiah House. And so we would love to participate with folks who are incarcerated. I will say two things that make this. In Scott County, we're going to participate. We would love to have a detailed conversation about this. The things that make it tricky, an ET needs to be delivered when the person is going into withdrawal. And so we need access to the person in that early stage, for instance, right after they were arrested. Once they've been through a period of time and the opiates have begun to move out of their system, we have not yet established that NET has the same level of benefit for those individuals. So we need them early. We tend to start them while they are going into acute withdrawal. The second issue is that from a research point of view, the safety of participants is very important to us, and we have to establish that to an IRB. The safety of participants when they are incarcerated is very difficult to establish because they are what is called a vulnerable population. And so doing research with people who are incarcerated is just hard. So if there was a willingness in the county, we would love to engage in discussing how potentially we could take folks that were heading for incarceration, but were still in withdrawal, and very rapidly move them into the program to use them as a part of the population. I think that would be a superb thing for us to do. We would have to be quick and well coordinated, and we could not start with an incarcerated population because of the IRB issues.
Anyone else with a question? Joe, I had shared a couple questions with you. You know, in your email, you state that before the study can actually become active, that you need to reach a threshold, and help me remember the threshold of money raised or money committed to the program. What was that number that you need to have committed before you can actually start the study?
The commitment to start the study is that the state would approve us. And the state, we have asked them for $3.7 million.
Okay.
If the state is sufficient to say go, we will start immediately upon receiving that authorization.
Okay. And then I also asked, you know, am I correct that you mentioned your goal would be to try to get 34 program participants from Scott County? And I think I asked, you know, if we made this commitment, but we could not get 34 participants in the project, you know, what do we do there? And help me guide from there.
Yeah, that's an outstanding question. So the way that we're structuring this, we're essentially allocating people to counties based on the size of their financial contribution. And so in the case for Scott County, we would allocate 34 people. In the end, if we got to a full year and we did not find 34 people in Scott County, at the end those slots would go to other people, other counties. The opposite is also true. If we got to the end of that period and there were 50 people from Scott County, we would use unfilled slots to treat folks from Scott County. Let's put these numbers into context. So today there are 56,000-ish people in Scott County. The Office of Drug Control Policy says that in Kentucky today, about 10% of the population across the Commonwealth has used opiates non-medically in the last year. So just by math, that's 5,600 people in Scott County have used opiates in the last year non-medically, 5,600. If we would say what percentage of those have been diagnosed with OUD, it's probably about 1,500 of those. We're asking for 34. So my guess is that our problem won't be under-subscription, it will be over-subscription. I would also say, just as a data point, Isaiah House today treats about 5,000 people or so, 5,500 people a year go through their facility, of which the majority have OUD diagnosis. In total, we're talking about 500. So we think that the numbers that we're talking about are a sufficiently small number relative to the size of the problem in Kentucky that our problem won't be a dearth of applicants.
Okay. Rick Hostetler.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Judge, members of the court. I apologize for not being there in person. I really wanted to be. And good morning, Karen Butcher. It's nice to hear from you this morning. Joe, my question is, you talked about, I think it's called Suboxone and Methadone. Those are the medications that are used. And so if someone is, I don't know how to put this, if someone is taking that on a daily basis, would they be available? Would it be, could they use the net? Could they be a participant? Is that considered, am I asking that right?
You are. They could be. So we're running a study today at Isaiah House. The criteria is the same. You have to be diagnosed with OUD to begin the study. The bulk of the folks that come in are taking fentanyl, for instance. There are a small number of folks that are taking illicit Suboxone that wish to participate. There's an even smaller number that today are on medication. If they were to decide that they wish to be treated without medication, and that's a criteria for acceptance, then we would accept them into the study. But for us, it's important to say that the population we're targeting is in fact people who wish to be abstinent without medication, and that is a question they must answer positively in order to be included in the study. If they're wishing to be on medication, we have no desire to move them off of Subutex or meth.
Thank you. That's so, but they could participate. They would be considered actively. They could show up one day and say, "Hey, I'm taking it this morning or whatever, but I want to get in your program," and they would qualify.
Yes, they would.
Okay. Thank you.
I had a question just to clarify, Joe, the actual financial commitment request from this application, essentially. Am I correct in saying that the initial request is for $60,000 the first year and then 33 and 33, if I remember correctly?
The request is for 66,000 in the first year, 66, and then 22 in the second year, 22 in the third year.
Okay, I was just a little off. Sorry, I couldn't.
But that essentially this establishes 34 spots for Scott County citizens.
And go ahead, Chad. But that would establish us in the research study, the sober study, and establish 34 spots, and that commitment would be over 3 years.
Yes, that is correct.
Ryan Pratt, do you have a question?
Yeah, so is the sober study, is it part of the FDA approval process, or is this just a completely separate from the FDA study?
Excellent question. It is completely separate. It will be run in the same manner. It will be, for instance, filed on clinicaltrials.gov, and it will have an institutional review board overseeing it. You will have a principal investigator, two of them, one from the University of Louisville, one from Wayne State. For what it's worth, if you were to pick the top 2 researchers in the United States into opiate use disorder, you would pick Sharon Walsh, who was at the University of Kentucky, who's running the HEAL initiative, and you'd pick Mark Greenwald at Wayne State, who did the bulk of the research into Suboxone, frankly. So Mark Greenwald is the principal investigator for this sober study and also for the study that we're presenting to the FDA.
Any other questions? Karen Butcher, join us. Karen, if you'll step up to the microphone there. And they can see you. So.
Hi, Joe.
It should be on.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you sound good.
Can you hear me without this?
Not so much.
Okay. Hi, Rick Hostetler used to be my magistrate. I'm wondering if the one up here knows he's mine. Hi, Rob Jones. All right. I'm speaking on behalf of Karen Butcher, not Karen Butcher on the Opioid Abatement Commission. So I want to make that clear. Most of you know I lost my son to an opiate overdose in 2020. So I have a vested interest in a lot of things here, and one of those being how the money is spent in our community. I also want to say to you, Joe, I believe in the net device. I've talked with 3 or 4 people who've used it, and I've talked with some people who are skeptical, and I'm sure you know that more than I do. I want to make sure that people understand, and I do think you stated this, this is to take away the withdrawal symptoms and the cravings, but it also means that that's the first step in complete recovery. In other words, we need to surround people with the recovery capital needed to stay in recovery, lifelong recovery, meaning I'll never use those substances again. So I just want to make that clear. Also, I want to ask, if you don't get this money from the Opioid Abatement Commission, what happens then to the commitment the county's made to participate in the study?
Thank you, Karen. First, I'm heartbroken by your loss. Opiates have just been devastating. I'm very sorry. If we were not to receive funding from the state, 2 things would happen. The first is that any funds that Scott County had allocated would immediately be returned. We are setting them aside, and it is a condition for state participation for those funds to be used. So we would immediately return them. The second thing is a little trickier. We're talking already to 34 counties. The sum of the contribution from those 34 counties is far in excess of what we would need to run this identical study. So we would probably take a step back, and then we would reapproach the counties and say, we wish to do this without the state. But frankly, I think that for NET to be useful in the Commonwealth, that the state is incumbent that the state bring its full skepticism to bear and participate in the process, not look at it from the outside. And so I would hate to be defaulting to that position. I think it would be a grave loss to the Commonwealth if that happened. But that is what we would do.
And my last question is, I'm curious about the studies you've done thus far. Why only in Kentucky?
Again, an outstanding question. Initially, it was not in Kentucky. It was in Scotland. And in Scotland, we received regulatory approval. We treated 500 or 600 people. We met with Parliament. We were approved to proceed when we went to get funding from their health service. They ended up telling us that they could not proceed unless the FDA approved this, which is curious because they're a European body. Their view was that at that time, this was in 2014, was that the device was acting like a drug. It was manipulating dopamine and serotonin in the brain. And the only thing they knew that did that was drugs. So they felt that the only body in the world today competent to rule on the NET device was the FDA. So we came back to the United States, we applied to the FDA, and we realized that it was about a $30 million problem in those days to get through. We're a small family-run company, we couldn't afford it, so we slowed down. Kentucky actually came to us, and there were a number of citizens who said, we heard what you're doing, we'd like you to try it. One of those was Mark LaPalme, the founder of Isaiah House. And he did what I consider today a very courageous thing. He said, the technology that you're talking about, if it does what it says, it really undermines our financial model. Today we're paid by duration of stay. And the aftercare, the necessity of aftercare remains, but the thing that pays for a residential rehab to stay alive as a company, that is undermined by your device. Nevertheless, Mark said, I didn't join this, and I shouldn't be speaking for Mark LaPalme, but Mark's comment was, I didn't start Isaiah House in order to make money. I started to treat my friends. And so if this actually helps, we're all in. And they, to their credit, have been all in since 2011. And why Kentucky today? It was 2 things. Principally, it's because we found a residential rehab that was willing to explore an intervention that had an uncertain impact on their finances. And it turns out very rare. The second is that we found a county level infrastructure that was willing to participate with us and help us through the early stages of research. And we did a lot of research in southern and eastern Kentucky and down in Hazard and places like this. And it was the communities in Kentucky that allowed us to proceed. So, like Kentucky, I always say Kentucky chose us, not the other way around.
Thank you.
Karen, thank you for being here. And, I just thought it was important to make sure you were part of the conversation, the personal aspect, and the big picture for our community. You've put together a coalition of community leaders that are involved in this. It's essentially a battle and effort to try to help people that are dealing with this addiction. And I really believe it's very, very important for us to do our due diligence and try to do the very best to help our community by spending this money in the most efficient way to make the biggest impact on the most people in our community. And I know you feel the same way. And we don't take that lightly. And, Joe, I know Joe and his group and the Isaiah House are committed to trying to make a difference. But this body has to gather data and gather information to help make a decision on how to spend those dollars and do it the right way. And one of the things that we have talked about already at length is the need for recovery support / transition housing that's supervised, that drug counseling and group and individual counseling, clinical setting almost there, and then helping with jobs. That whole continuum of care, that once someone goes through a residential program, whatever it might be, or if they were in the program with a NET device, once they go through that, they still need that support and to try to get them back to a regular life without addiction. So, I'd value any other comments from anyone on the court, but I want everyone to know that, I'm taking this seriously, and I know the court is as well, and we want to be good stewards of this opportunity. And this is an opportunity. And other aspects that need to be investigated, in my opinion, for this money is how could we partner with the school system to proactively pursue educational opportunities to try to help kids. And then we know, and I, as a former educator, I know, that there are children in our schools today that are impacted by addiction, fathers, family members, mothers, and how could we support those individuals as well, possibly? That's something I think we need to look at as well. I'd value any comment from you or anyone else, and then we'll move on to our next agenda item.
I have a few comments I can make if you don't mind. David, did you
Go ahead. Go ahead.
This Recovery Ready Communities Initiative and the opioid abatement money at the county and city level is something that we've been discussing now since September, because early on I thought we've got to come together as a community, not just a few individuals, if we truly want to be recovery ready. And I will say to you, if you think this is not going to touch your family, you are very naive. I never thought that either. We did start Parents of Addicted Loved Ones 9 years ago, which is a recovery support meeting for the parents, the grandparents, and other sober family members. And we meet every Monday night at Northside Christian Church. That room should be full every Monday night. But there's still shame and stigma and embarrassment attached. But if you could help spread the word that is available, that would be great. But I want to tell you about my last coalition meeting with Judge Covington and Mayor Jenkins and Devin Golden and Cam Culbertson and many other people, Billy Parker, superintendent. Everybody wants the same thing, which is what Judge Covington just mentioned. But it takes the whole community. I have a lot of other opinions, but you'll need to come to the meeting on the 14th of April from 2 to 4 at the health department if you want to hear the rest of the story. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And Joe, I thank you for being with us. and appreciate the time. And
Judge.
Rick Hostetler, and then David Livingston still has a comment, Joe.
Well, one quick question, just as I think I heard you right. You're thinking, Joe, Mr. Wilson, you're thinking you're going to have this study done and I guess sent to the FDA by the end of the year, or you think you're going to hear back from them by the end of the year?
No, we'll submit to the FDA. We actually meet with the FDA in about 2 weeks. We'll submit to them in the fourth quarter. But frankly, this is going to be very difficult for the FDA to rule on. They have not approved a treatment for opioid use disorder since 2002. So we expect it will be a rigorous process, and rigorous means long.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's clarification.
David Livingston.
Yeah, my question was, if I'm understanding this correctly, these are kind of two parallel studies, one for the FDA and then the other study that we would help fund. And if I missed this, I apologize, because I'm trying to listen intently, because this is so far out of my realm of understanding and dealing with in life. What is the reason with the parallel studies, the FDA and then this one that you're coming to us with?
Yeah, that's a great question. Until the FDA clears us, any work that we do must be in the context of a study. And the reason is that today in the United States, there are safety measures wrapped around a study that allow everybody to be confident that people are not taken advantage of, that their health is protected, their information is protected. And so, because we are not yet FDA cleared, the safest, best, only context for us to proceed is inside the study. I would say also that the Janssen settlement funds that we're talking about today, they very explicitly talk about use of their funds for opioid abatement research. We think that we line up perfectly with what the national administrator is trying to accomplish with their allocation of funds.
And one other quick thing, I'm assuming if we determine to go down this path as a court, that there will be a contractual arrangement that spells out the expectations from each side.
Yes, and I should have delivered to you already both a description of the study and an actual contract. If you were willing to proceed, we would send you a DocuSign version of that contract to execute. But you should have all of that material as a court.
Okay, thank you. Rob Jones.
A couple questions. One was, am I correct in thinking that they wanted to get the people that are coming into the detention center with these issues, or how are we going to select those people?
So, Joe, can you answer that?
I can. We would look to take people from a number of sources, and again, you would define people for Scott County that you could contact easily. If you were willing to have people heading toward your detention center, I would be delighted. I think this is a very good group of folks for us to include in the study. We would need to work it out with you so that we could act rapidly enough to make that happen. And so I think there's a little bit of development work with you that we would need to do. There are other populations that you have in Scott County that would also be eligible, where it's less time dependent. Typically, someone heading for a detention center has just stopped taking opiates, frankly. And so we've got to act fast. But we would love to have a conversation with you about logistically how to make that work. I think that would be very useful for the county to have that population participate in the study.
And then just when we were at the conference, his presentation down there was I was impressed. I don't know how you guys felt, but I was very impressed with his presentation down there at the conference. I think it's a good move.
I have one more question. Sorry.
Ryan Pratt.
Sorry, just one more. So you talked about an Isaiah House with inpatient facilities, capabilities for the initial treatment, for the initial week and then aftercare. Is there any concern about transporting somebody that's in the early stages of withdrawal from Scott County? I don't even know where the closest inpatient residential Isaiah House is.
Think Nelson County.
From here to
for males
to Nelson County. I mean, there's got to be a lot of liability behind that and danger, right? I mean, in the early stage of withdrawal and transporting them an hour and a half away.
I think that we have done this with Isaiah House now for about 550 people. So I feel like this is an item that we have under control. I don't believe that the liability is an issue. I think that's handled from a strict liability point of view by policies that Isaiah House and that NRC have in place. But I believe also that Isaiah House is very good at managing the logistics of getting people to their facility, whether it's themselves providing transportation or arranging transportation that is comfortable to the participant.
But it's all like POV or Isaiah House, like it's not like using EMS or anything like that, right?
No, sir. No, sir. I'll make a plug. If any of you want to see a thing that I'm not allowed to talk about, you can, Amazon Prime, you can look up a movie called The Final Fix. It's narrated by Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ewan McGregor. And you can watch 5 people from Kentucky be treated in front of you. And if I can spoil the ending for a second, there's one of those people who walked out of treatment early and just very regrettably overdosed 2 weeks later and died. 4 of those gentlemen today went through treatment, and all 4 of those are still today opioid abstinent, working or in school. That was 2018. That's 4 people out of 4. That's just an astonishing thing to be true. But if you want to go see it with your own eyes, it's Amazon.com, and it costs you $2. I apologize. Not my film. But you can watch 5 people actually go through the process, and you can come to your own conclusion.
It's a good film.
He had me at Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah. Joe, thank you again, and we'll be in touch, and this will be a topic of discussion, and I'll be at the April 14th meeting and with our local group, and we know how important this is, and we do want to do our due diligence and be good stewards of the opportunity, and it is what that is. This is an opportunity to make a difference, and I appreciate your time, and thanks so much.
Okay, thank you, Judge. Thank you, magistrates. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
All right, we will now turn it over to our friend from Elizabeth Village, Candace. Thank you for being here. And let me say this, congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
How's the new baby?
Good. 1 month old today. So.
1 month. She was going to be here a month ago.
Yeah.
And we gave her a pass.
Yes. Thank you for that. I was a little grumpier then. Yes, the people behind the curtain, they have my PowerPoint. It's like Wizard of Oz back there.
Yes.
Yeah, so my name is Candace Whitehouse, for anybody who I don't know. I'm the director of Elizabeth's Village. We're a nonprofit here in Scott County that serve women and children who are experiencing homelessness, poverty, and domestic violence. And so I just wanted to come. I try to come every year and give you all an update of what's going on in our organization, alongside our request for continual funding from the budget that you all have. We turned in a month ago, so hopefully everybody has seen that. But besides just getting that piece of paper, I like to come and do an in-person update, answer any questions that you all have, and hopefully get everybody excited about what's going on at Elizabeth's Village. So if you want to go to the next slide. If you're not familiar with Elizabeth's Village, really quickly, I'll go over what we currently are. We have 3 programs. One is our transitional home down on College Street. It has been up and running since 2013, and we've had a lot of success at that program. It is for women and children who are experiencing homelessness. They can come and stay in our long-term program and work on becoming self-sufficient either for the first time in their lives or again, after having some sort of issue with that. And we are back to operating at 100% capacity. This time last year, we were only at 75%. After the pandemic, we slowly had to reopen just for safety and keeping everybody, all those restrictions. But we are back up to 100%. And so our home is full again with a waiting list again. We have had a waiting list pretty much ever since we've opened, unfortunately. But we are excited to be able to serve women and children we do get to serve in that program. We have a great staff there that is housed in that home. That home is technically owned by First Christian, so I always try to give them a shout out for letting us use that building and supporting our program there at the transitional home. So if we go to the next slide, our second program is our homelessness prevention and outreach program. This started back in 2017, and we are doing homelessness prevention here in Scott County. Last year, I know I touched a lot on, this was a really essential program during the pandemic. A lot of people found themselves looking at possibly becoming homeless during the pandemic who normally are not, worried about that, that's not something that they are dealing with. So that program really was essential during the pandemic, and it is still essential now, but we were very blessed to have that during those years. And so we are still continuing to work with women and children who are at risk of becoming homeless. So if they have an eviction notice, if they know they're not going to have their rent money, if they are an 18-year-old whose parents have said, you turn 18 in 2 weeks and you will no longer, be able to live here, or whatever the situation is that their housing is at risk, they can come and be a part of this program, and we either try to find them housing or help them stay where they are. And then once that emergency situation is figured out, we try to continue to work with them so that way any sort of habits or, any sort of, my brain, they're not coming back to us with that same situation. And so we try to continue to work with them so that way they're breaking any, bad habits, like looking at, can you even afford this housing? If you saved every dollar that you brought in for your paycheck, can you afford this housing? If the answer is no, then trying to look at different housing, making sure they have all the government supports that are in place, helping them to build skills so that way they are not looking at the same situation every single month. We also, with that program, oversee K-Count, which is a statewide count of homeless individuals that each county is requested to report how many homeless individuals we have on a certain night in the year. For a while, Scott County was reporting 0, and Elizabeth Village found that out. So a few years ago, we took over that count, and we've been reporting ever since. And that, I believe, has affected some of our funding and things for our county. And so we're very glad that we picked that up and are doing that annually so the state knows what the issues are here in Scott County. And then we also, with this program, this will be the program that works most directly with the Director of Affordable Housing and Homelessness Prevention. We're very excited for that position and for hopefully all that to work out the way that we're hoping it will, so that way we can look at larger grants such as rapid rehousing and TBRA, things like that, so that way we can have larger programs coming into our community that will affect the population that we're working with.
And Candace, I just wanted to mention, the court's aware that the individual that had accepted the position, that we were very hopeful it would get started, regretfully decided to withdraw. And from my understanding, the city, who is the managing partner, will repost the position and try to identify a good candidate. And I think you and I have talked at length about how important it is to have that partner for you all and our other nonprofits to be able to work together on projects like that rapid rehousing program and such. So I'll let you continue.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll find a great candidate for that, like I said, moving forward. But with that partnership, be able to bring in some of those larger programs that, as a small nonprofit, it's been really difficult for us to tackle. But with the coordination of the county, city, and other nonprofits, be able to bring in something like rapid rehousing, expand our TBRA program that we currently have, those federal programs that are a larger scale, that are harder for us to take on as a small nonprofit, but can make a huge difference in our community. So we're already starting to dabble in that, and we're ready for a larger approach to those programs. So if you go to the next slide, our third program and final program for right now is our domestic violence program. We have an advocate who works with us through the VAWA, which is the Victim Violence Against Women's Act, and we have an advocate through that federal program that works with women and children who are experiencing abuse of some sort in our community. As you can see on the slide, hopefully, you can see that our numbers each year are rising, which is bittersweet. It's great that women and children feel like they can reach out to our program and get that assistance. I hate that those numbers are rising and we have that many women and children who are in need of that program in Scott County, but glad that they feel like they can come to us and get those resources and be able to get assistance in those areas. And then, so those are our 3 programs that that are functioning right now. And if you all continue to fund us through the budget, those are the programs that you're currently supporting. And each of those programs become very vital in our community and stay very busy. Like I said, our transitional home constantly has a waiting list, and our other 2 programs are growing each year with the number of clients that we're serving. So the county funding us through the budget, you are putting dollars into those programs. If you'll go to the next slide. So our request is a little more than last year, but like with everything else, everything's growing. Our needs are growing, and the need for support is growing. So we put that request in, like I said, and we hope that you will consider that. If you'll go to the next slide. And just as a general update, this request has nothing to do with more than a number of campaign dollars, but I just wanted to give you all an update since you all did give us quite a big allotment of monies towards that last year with the ARPA funding. And for those of you unfamiliar, the More Than a Number campaign is to open a domestic violence shelter here in Scott County. In Scott County, we don't have a domestic violence shelter for women and children who are experiencing abuse and need somewhere physically to go and be safe. And so Elizabeth's Village has purchased this property on the screen, and we are renovating it to open a domestic violence shelter. We have a campaign going with our goal of $1.5 million. Last year, the county gave us a large allotment for that campaign along with the city, and since then we've continued to raise money to meet this goal. So we're around $660,000 at the moment, so we are getting to our goal of $1.5 million, but I wanted to update you all and say we have come very far in that project. We've raised more funds. If you go to the next slide, you can see that the addition is getting completed. So over the last month, if you know where it is, it's on a double lot, so this is on the back end, and this will be all the common spaces like the living room, kitchen, offices, playroom for the kids, things like that. So all of that's being done right now. We actually had the roof put on 2 days ago, so it's not in that picture, but and that's with partnership with a lot of local contractors, local builders who are donating a lot of labor, giving us material at cost, things like that. So our community is really coming together to make this happen. 84 Lumber specifically has been fantastic to work with and has really gone out of their way to try to make it to where we can do this at a very affordable price, so that way we have more funding for other things as well. So, and I think the next slide is the last slide. Yes. So if you have any questions or anything for me right now, I'm happy to answer those. Or if you would like, I always extend the invitation. You all can come by our office. It is right behind Joe Pat, I think, on Court Street. So it's a bright purple door. You can't miss us. Chad's been there. And you can come by and meet our staff, see our office, and be happy to give a tour to anybody of the transitional home or of the DV shelter. We'd be happy for you to come out and see it, ask questions in person, and know where the dollars that we're requesting are going, so that way you feel confident in funding us again this year. Does anybody have any questions right now that I can answer?
We thank you for what you're doing, and it's obvious that you have a plan, and you're executing that plan to help the community, and appreciate the approach that you take and what you do. And I also wanted to mention that the county attorney's office now has a part-time victims advocate, and it'd be great to connect your and with our county attorney staff member, and we'll help make that happen.
Sure.
So any other questions?
I would just add that I will be playing in the second annual Elizabeth Village Golf Scramble. This year, if I can shoot a 25 under, we might have a chance to win, so we'll see.
Yes.
But that's coming up next month. So if
It
anybody-
is.
If you shoot a 25.
Listen,
you are
it's.
pencil whipping.
I've already got 3 holes. I've already got 3 holes in one. Haven't even started yet. So, but other people should sign up and
What's
play.
the date on that?
It's April.
May.
Or May. This
If
month.
Phil, do you mind to send it?
If you'll send me the email,
Yes.
I'll send it out.
5/18, May 18th
May
at 9
18th,
a.m.
thank you.
It fills up quickly.
If you know Mayor Mabry, you know she puts on a good time. So it's her golf scramble she's putting on. So it is a lot of fun. Did you come out last year?
Played
Yes.
last year. We only shot like a 22 under. We didn't win. I'm just kidding. I don't know. We're good.
Yes. So we're happy to have you come out.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Just moving forward, I have a laundry list of some items, and then I'll open it up for anyone on the court, and then anyone in our audience. Coming up on our agenda this coming week, for Friday, a week from today, we'll be talking about the rural secondary road program. We'll be bringing up the second reading of our advisory board for the reservoir property ordinance. We'll also be bringing to you, after we pass that ordinance, the names of the individuals that met the last time that's going to serve as our initial advisory board members. And I'm excited about that. The ordinance another ordinance that we'll have to address, and I think I've shared this, is a DLG requirement, and Michelle can comment if she wants to, but anytime you issue any general obligation bonds or debt, as we're going to have to build the sheriff's office, clerk's office, and the EMS station, and we've talked about a general plan, but you have to have an ordinance put in place to do that with DLG. So that'll be on the agenda to discuss and consider, and as we move forward and put the bid out, and then once you get that bid information back, then we can really look long and hard about that consideration and how to go about it. And we'll follow the direction of Michelle and Compass Municipal Advisors, Michael George and RJ, just trying to make sure that we do that in the best financial approach and being fiscally responsible. Another thing that I shared about a week or 10 days ago, and kind of tabled it from our last meeting because the actual link that I shared with you from the Revenue Commission is about 150 pages, and it's essentially their operating administrative guidelines, and it is just a resolution supporting and following those guidelines that the court will consider as well. And then also wanted to go down through here, and I will be bringing to you requesting approval to purchase an ambulance from EMS. This is what we've discussed. We have $150,000 in this year's budget, and we've had so much trouble because of supply chain issues and such, not being able to identify a Chevy chassis. And what we have done is Chris has asked for consideration, and I've talked with the city, and they're supportive, is spending the $150,000 now on a brand new ambulance, and then paying the balance in next year's budget. And that's been made in the budget request. The budget committee has seen that, and we've discussed that in the last meeting. So on Friday, a week from now, I'll ask you to formally approve that plan. If anybody has any questions about that, now you certainly could ask now, but I do think it's the best thing for us to do to make sure they have the equipment needed and that their inventory is roadworthy. So any questions about that plan? I think it works out pretty well for us. I'd like to ask Jeff to come forward and talk about a firefighter hires that we're going to be considering this coming week as well. And Jeff, I'll let you take it from here.
Sure. Thank you, Judge, Magistrates. We have, I think I've mentioned this to a couple of you, 2 vacancies right now in the fire department. We also have 1 retirement that's effective here at the end of this month. So we have 3 vacancies that we're trying to fill. We have a process and a list that we're working on. We're going to present the ranking list to you at the next meeting on the 14th. And what we would like to do is we have another pending retirement that's expected to be effective July 31st. And we would like to go ahead and hire 4 people instead of just 3 so that we can fill all 4 positions. The plan is to have those individuals begin employment in May, and then we go through their training, and all would be able to begin providing service at a station on the engines effective August the 1st. That's one thing I'll present to you at the meeting next week is the recommendation to go ahead and hire 4 people instead of just 3. It also helps us from a standpoint of, having a recruit class with 1 person in it is just really hard to train just 1 person, I think. And also there's the element of having 4 people start together and developing bonds and things, I think helps with recruitment and retention efforts too. So I think that's another positive for why we would want to go ahead and hire 4 if we can. Also, if we go ahead and hire 4, we're going to incur less overtime cost because now that person's able to start work and we're not waiting for them to go through the 12 or 14 weeks of training. So anyhow.
Questions? David?
Would that put us 1 over?
It would put us 1. Yeah, it would put us 1.
I mean, is there anything that we need to do from?
I'll investigate and report back.
Okay. I mean, I think it's the correct thing to do. I just want to make sure we don't.
Sure.
What precedent or?
Just knowing that we're going to have this anticipated other retirement,
Right.
It just makes sense to navigate with the recruit class situation.
I agree with that. I
Ryan?
just want to make sure it doesn't.
Yeah.
What happens if, mid-July, this retiree has a financial issue, is like, well, I can't retire yet. What do we do then?
That's a good question. I mean, my guess is that given based upon past history, somebody usually, there's either an injury or something happens and you're still short a person. So I guess what we would do is that we would not present to you the recommendation to hire another person until somebody else either resigned or retired, which is, if you have roughly a 10% turnover rate, you're going to lose 4 people a year anyhow. So my guess is that in time it'll work itself out.
If you didn't have the recruit class consideration in the 14 weeks of training, it just, in my mind, and yeah, there's no guarantee that the gentleman will, but he's indicated that's his plan.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee that he doesn't back out.
And there's no guarantee that all 4 recruits will go through all 14 weeks either.
That's right. We might lose somebody. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
If some butts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. So, thank you, Jeff. Anything else?
No.
Now, while you're standing there, I'm going to share Jeff's information and timeline. Jeff's been very helpful, wearing the hat of an IT guy on helping us make a plan to move forward, moving from QX.net and migrating to Office 365 for across all the county for users. There's different tiers of users, and then migrating our email to Outlook. The biggest thing is that, in my book, is that we can jointly collaborate on calendars and scheduling that we have not had ever. And I carry around my phone and I take picture when I leave. I'll take a picture of my calendar because I'll have inevitably 3 calls saying, hey, what do is your calendar clear? Can you meet with me? Blah, blah, blah. Or if I need to try to meet with, a group of, employees or whomever, you can send out a calendar invite and you can, but Jeff has a schedule that we have been working with a gentleman, James Dingus from 13 Layers, and we've been working with our partners in Madison County.
And Chip Clark too.
And Chip Clark as well. To lay out a plan and get everybody the best chance we can to have everybody on one page, which is a big challenge, to do this migration and then make sure that no one loses their archives and what they have now in their inbox. And, it'll be a team effort. Do you want to make any other comments?
Yeah, I mean, I guess a couple comments I have. There's going to be 3 important dates in this plan. Is the first important date is April 17th, which is when the initial email goes out just announcing to all staff that this is coming. The next most important date is April 24th, where everybody will get an email with their temporary password. It won't be needed on April 24th, but it will be needed on May 1st, because May 1st is when, if you want to continue getting email, you have to use that new temporary password. So those 3 dates are the important dates, and the goal is James and Chip believe that they can get this migration completed in that 1 week period. So Chip and his team will be on site those days to help with getting the archived email, because right now the mailbox is only 2 gigabytes, so people go over their quota, unfortunately. So you're going from a 2 gigabyte mailbox to a 50 gigabyte mailbox. So the need to clean up email and delete stuff won't be necessary, and also you shouldn't need to archive anymore, but that's one thing they'll do. They'll take that archived email that you might have on your computer, copy it over so you don't lose any of the historical information. And then let's see here, what else? And then they'll also be on site to help with putting your temporary password in your computer if you need help with that. Also mobile devices, because there's just a lot of things that will have to be corrected in that period. So they'll be on site to help people with that.
And I think everybody knows that this is a much needed project, and it will help us. I'm very confident in that. So Jeff, thanks. And then I'll be calling on you all to help us try to make it as smooth as possible, and we'll work together. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next thing, we are right in the middle of budget work, and budget committee met yesterday at 8 a.m. Met to probably close to noon, and we will continue to try to meet with department representatives and constitutional officers to talk about requests, and then try to between now and May, we'll look at where we're at, but we will have a work session just dedicated to the budget, and we'll share information and get input from everyone, once we get through this drafting process, and then we'll go from there. So we just wanted you to know we're hard at it there. Strand and Associates, Jared, will they be with us on Friday just to give us some short information about stormwater? And I do want to make mention that the Joshua Court project, JR has been out there, and JR's got some pictures. It looks fabulous, and let's pray that is what works to end those stormwater issues in that neighborhood. So salute the court for trying to make a difference on that for those people. Shared great news, the summary judgment from the federal court. It's a public matter now, but all of that from that federal action with Waste Services of the Bluegrass has been dismissed. Very, very happy about that, and I feel like validates that the court took the right path and did the appropriate action, amending the solid waste management plan. So that's great news. And then we have met and done a few conferences with Strobo Barkley. You all authorized us to seek outside counsel, and we have met with them several times. from what we understand, as of yesterday, the clock had not started ticking because the Bluegrass Water has to file documentation about this request, and that documentation, from what we gathered yesterday, has not been filed yet. So the clock's not started ticking. So I will share via email a Strobo Barkley proposal, and if you all have any questions after reading that proposal, please get back with me. It outlines their plan for representation to oppose that rate hike. And I really do believe that it's the right thing for our citizens that, individually can't do very much, but collectively, if we can represent them, I think it helps. And we're talking about going from $12 approximately to $99 a month. And that is not, in my mind, appropriate. It's not a gradual increase by any means. And I think that we're doing the right thing to help our citizens. And then on Tuesday at noon, Isaiah House, who we partner with the IOP and programming that they do for our community with those battling addiction, they're doing a ribbon cutting at noon at their location there, right behind Stockton Mortgage in the Indian Acres Shopping Center. So all of you are invited to that. I'm done. If anyone has any comments from the court or anyone in our audience that has any comments, I'll open it up. Hey, Jello Bros. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Judge. Good morning, Magistrates.
Good morning.
Wanted to give you the first quarter update on the jail, and I've got a few items in there, and as I can imagine, the items will kind of fluctuate from quarter to quarter. But our staffing levels are back up. They're at the maximum 26 right now. And so I do think that your all support and help in that endeavor has been productive. We're getting more applications. We're getting more qualified applicants. And so I thank you for that. The population, and as far as the staffing levels go, the full-time is full, which is at 26, and we've got about 11 part-timers down there right now. And the part-timers tend to fluctuate. They kind of come and go. But anyway, that's much better position to be in than we were just a couple months ago. As far as the population of the facility, today it's about 116 or 117. I think we just released somebody. We've been up to 122 this first quarter, and that's about all I'll have to really say about the population. We're still in the good range, the manageable range as far as I'm concerned, although it's overcrowded, over capacity. And then we had our first DOC inspection of 2023, and we did very well in that. We were cited for being overcrowded. We were cited for a vent that was covered in one of the cells, and which is, quite honestly, it's an ongoing effort. We can go through the facility, clear out all these vents, and the inmates will have them backfilled before we even finish our first round. So it's a constant battle, but it's minor. We got it taken care of and rectified. And the other thing I think that was mentioned in the report by the inspector was that we had a clogged drain, which we took care of immediately. So, any questions?
How many? And I know. And first of all, I want to say again, thank you for having the inmates out.
Yes, sir.
I've seen them out multiple times this week. How many inmates do we have currently at other facilities?
I believe that number is 7.
Okay.
We just sent a couple more out
And
this
most of them
week.
are Clark County.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions? I can share the inspection report with the court. Received that
That'd be
email,
great.
reviewed that as well, and
Yep.
Be happy to do that. And then as far as your programming and such, is there any update on
Yeah,
that?
actually, I forgot to mention that. Thanks for bringing that up. So, as you know, we had applied with the state to expand the programming down here. We were approved for that. So we'll be able to offer, and I forget the names of the various programs that we're now able to instruct on. Before, the actual classroom type of programs that we were offering, we had a parenting program pre-COVID, and we had a MRT program pre-COVID. Now we're able to offer several more programs under the MRT umbrella. I think there was a domestic violence program. There are 3 or 4 of them, and if you want, I can email the judge and let you know. But the important thing is we were approved to be able to offer these now based on, we're not going to offer all these programs at once. We still offer basic MRT, but we're going to do the parenting program. And in addition to that, we have to see what the need is for our inmates, because some of these inmates have already had some of these programs. So we're going to strike in a way that affects the most individuals within our population. So while we may offer 5 or 6 different programs, we may only, over the course of a year, do 2 or 3 of them because we do have the one room to do the programming. So we're slightly limited by the facility, but we're also going to be limited by what the need is of the inmate population there. So thanks for bringing that up.
Joe, one thing I would be interested in is how many medical runs or medical appointments where specifically your staff has to go to the hospital to be with someone. So in my mind, I can regulate and analyze how many hours they're away from the jail because of some kind of medical issue, and that plays a part in the staffing and how many people you have on the floor. And
yeah.
I would be interested in that information.
So in addition to just a run to the hospital, say for the afternoon, are you looking for also the fact that sometimes we have to sit with them for days and weeks at the hospital?
Yeah, I mean, because that really paints a picture of the need for additional staff, or you bring in a part-time staff or overtime. To me, because we understand going out and picking up trash, I get that part of it, and sometimes transportation to possible other jails, but that's the one part I'm not really sure about that I'd like to know.
Absolutely. Would you like that for the fiscal year up to this point or the last 12 months?
I think, well, let's see here. The fiscal year would probably, as we're in the budget, looking at budgeting and looking at last fiscal year versus the upcoming fiscal year, that probably would be the best scenario.
Okay, and last fiscal year also?
You want the you want?
Yeah, I know what he's saying.
22 and 22.
Yeah, I think that'd be fine. Previous and current. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you. And then you and I have talked, and we've mentioned here our partnership with Isaiah House, and you and Brian Privet with the Isaiah House have talked about their possibly meeting with inmates and doing assessments, and you all are working on that as well.
Working on it as we speak. Working on the protocols is what we're trying to get ironed out, and honestly, I think probably next week we'll be rolling with them.
Good. Great. Any other questions? Jelly Brewers, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else from our audience want to share anything? We wish you a great Easter weekend, and thank you for being here with us today.